and it is literally sensory overload. When I saw that 70% number, I felt like y'all can't talk to me about how little kids are dealing with special education, because that really is literally a school to prison pipeline. Like, if we're
Yeah.
literally not catching the little 20%, which I don't think is 20, but if you're
Yeah.
not catching the little
Yeah.
20%,
Hmm.
your whole jail pretty much is filled with neurodivergent kids. Like, that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a
Listen,
problem.
peace, my people. Welcome to I Must Be Buggin', where we have honest, relatable conversations packed with powerful insights that spark curiosity and help melanated, gifted, and neurodivergent folks feel seen, safe, and celebrated. Here, labels don't have to feel like pathology, and complexity feels comfortable. Welcome to the latest episode of I Must Be Buggin'. This is your host, Sheldon Gay. As I always say, so honored for you all to join us. I have an awesome guest here with us today. Talk to you a little bit about her in a few seconds. But let me start, as we always do, with my name is Sheldon Gay. My pronouns are he and him. And let me give you as well a visual description for those it's helpful for. Today, I have on my black over-ear headphones. I have on a gray hoodie of my design, which says Unique Brilliance. Check that out on the merch shop. I am a black man in my 40s with light brown skin. I have a mustache, a little goatee, black curly hair on the top that's faded on the side and the back. Behind me are a series of shelves with some of my favorite personal items and books, including a pillow that says labels don't have to feel like pathology. And with that, let me introduce our guest, Shakela Strawberry. And Shakela has dedicated her career to advocacy, from supporting vulnerable populations on public assistance to teaching inner city youth. Her advocacy journey became personal when one of her children was identified as dyslexic, dysgraphic, and ADHD. Shakela's search for suitable education options revealed a stark divide: private schools with high costs and limited diversity versus under-resourced institutions with greater student diversity but less representation among staff and administration. Determined to bridge these gaps, she earned her certification in dyslexia and founded A.D.E, Audacity to Dare to Educate. The nonprofit's mission is to embrace difference and close the equity gap in special education, one unique mind at a time, which I love that last piece.
Thank
Shakela, thank you so
you.
much for joining us.
Thank you. It's good to be here. I'm Shakela Strawberry, she, her. I have an orange shirt, says Audacity to Dare to Educate, and our motto on the back, which is we learn different because we are different.
Mm,
Um, so I'm just really, really excited to be here.
great. Yeah. I know we, have had a few conversations, and I think people are really going to love your story. To that end, let's get into it, right? So tell us a little bit about yourself and what neurodivergence means to you.
So I am a mom turned advocate. That's the best way I could describe myself.
Mhm.
A mom turned advocate turned educator. Is the best way I could describe myself. I um no one could really prepare me for switching careers at the age of 40, but that's literally what happened. But I love what I do. I'm currently a teacher in a realm of academic intervention, where I work with small groups with young people who struggle with reading.
Mm,
I also am a special education teacher. I started out in special education, specifically dealing with youth who had dyslexia, and now it has expanded to a full-fledged special education teacher.
mhm.
And so that's what I do as far as my calling and my job. I landed there literally through my own child being neurodivergent, feeling like I was scolded for trusting the system,
Mm,
simultaneously feeling like I they weren't giving me the answers that I needed, or
mhm,
perhaps didn't have the education that they needed in order to
mhm,
help my neurodivergent child.
mhm,
Um, to the extent where they didn't even label their disability, like they didn't name it. I don't
mm,
like the word label, sorry, but they
mhm,
didn't name the disability
mhm,
on the evaluation. They literally whispered it to me and then
Mhm.
was like, go look up dyslexia. And I'm like, put it on the paper. um, but of course, as you travel through this life of neurodiversity and advocacy, you later start to understand all the politics behind education,
Mhm.
unfortunately.
Mhm.
Um, but I did just that. I did the research. I did the research on dysgraphia, which there really isn't nearly as much information on dysgraphia and dyscalculia as there is on dyslexia. Um, but then I went back to school because, again, like we were in these IEP meetings and I felt like my child was not advancing. And I feel like, to your point of how I happened upon ADE, I feel like once a child is identified as special education, for some reason we lower the standards. And
Mhm.
that does not necessarily have to be the case. I know that my children are very smart, right? And that's not me just being a mom. It's
Right.
literally they were doing stuff. I was like, what in the world? Like, where did
Mhm.
that mind come from? But once you learn how neurodivergent minds work,
Mhm.
it's not only fascinating, but then we can work with those particular strengths to help those people be the best version of themselves. So ADE is it is an acronym, but it's also a Yoruba name
Mhm.
for my neurodivergent child, which is why it has a crown around our logo, because the Yoruba meaning is royal one.
Mhm.
And I want, like I told you when we talked before, I want our neurodivergent individuals to be comfortable with being uniquely set apart, which is
Mhm.
what royalty is, right?
Mhm.
Everybody
Mhm.
doesn't get
Mhm.
treated
Mhm.
this thing, but you're so special, right?
Mhm.
We are so special, and we want them to know that we will take the care and the love that it takes to understand their language, speak their language, and then in turn learn from them, because neurodivergence can teach us so much.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Mhm.
love a lot of different things that you were just sharing. I mean, it's actually also really relevant to a couple of things that have come up in the last couple of days. You know, one, even just this piece about expectations changing once a neurotype, a neurodivergent neurotype is named.
Mhm.
I know that there are some people who are like, again, there's just like a switch that flips, and it's like, well,
Yep.
no, that nobody said anything about there
Mm.
being a deficiency. It's just a
Mhm.
difference, right?
Yep.
And so if we
Yep.
start from there, the conversation completely changes.
Agree.
um and this is also true, as it relates to um like Black and otherwise melanated folks. I think oftentimes where things are named, there's this sort of amplification of that expectation, lowered expectation, or you know this fear that this person is just going to be too much, right? And it's like, well, you let Johnny sit over here and kind of like stim, right? And it's cool, but as soon as you know uh
Mhm.
Kwame or whatever, right? Like, or
Mhm.
Ade, right? Like actually is doing the same exact thing, all of a sudden we've got to get this kid under control.
Yep.
And that to me is yeah, like a big challenge. And we can go in so many different paths, but um I mean, you talked a little bit about like how you came to found ADE, but like what what do you actually, let's even go to this point. Like, you talked about not liking the word or trying, not liking the word label. Tell me a little bit more about that. Why do you say that? What kind of sticks out to you about it?
Well, it's funny you said sticks, because as soon as we think of labels, we think of stickers. Right? One of my biggest issues with labels is that you can take them on and off, or that's what people think that you
Mm,
can do.
mm,
Um, or they're putting a label on you and it's not even the right label, right?
mhm,
And
mhm,
so again, neurodivergence is literally scientific, it's literally biological. When I was doing my studies, even with dyslexia, I was so fascinated to realize, and this is just a pet peeve of mine, but I was so
Mm-hmm.
fascinated to realize that an MRI costs about as much as the educational evaluation,
Mm-hmm.
but you can actually see a dyslexic brain working in an MRI. Like there are certain um things that like don't go off or do go
Mm-hmm.
off, and
Mm-hmm.
like and they can actually see it in the MRI. So like if you
Mm-hmm.
actually Google dyslexic brain, like it will actually show you which parts aren't lit up, which parts are lit up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, that's when my whole thing is, and that was my first um professional development that I did, was not a label and identity, because that's
Mm-hmm.
it's not something that you just change.
Mm-hmm.
This is literally how people are born. This is how they are made up.
Mm-hmm.
Um and to your point, my whole goal with ADE is to show people that they're not a burden but a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
Um
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of times with a lot of different things, right? We just have to see what that is.
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't look like what we thought it should look like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that is why I don't like the word labels.
Yeah.
It is who I am. I
Right.
am a dyslexic person, or
Mm-hmm.
I am a gifted person,
Mm-hmm.
or I am a person that lives with ADHD. Like it
Mm-hmm.
just is,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I just want us to be very mindful and be very careful, because I also think, especially in our culture, we can it's easy to make people think that it's a deficit or needs a cure
Mm-hmm.
if you're not latching on to the fact that it is who they are, and so then
Mm-hmm.
you work around it or work through it or work with it. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah. No, I mean, thank you for sharing that. And it's one of the reasons I love asking questions like that, because uh, one, it just helps me to understand you, but I love these different perspectives and finding the resonance in them, because yeah, when I talk about labels don't have to feel like pathology, a part of that is because there's this, like I said, like we've already talked about, this automatic, jump to the brokenness and the
Hmm.
deficit and all this other
Absolutely.
kind of stuff, right? But as well, you know, that message in my work is really about saying, this is about humanity. This isn't about
Yes.
you know
Absolutely.
this thing that comes like some sort of alien
Yep.
piece or some sort of, it's no,
Yep.
this is about humanity. Which I also loved when you talked about the MRI piece, because multiple different things. One, you know, again, it just reinforces this thing that it is about just a different way in which the brain is working. And
Hmm.
it's not just, oh, that boy just need to, you know, read his books more or whatever, like spend more time
Hmm.
studying. Like, no, it's like,
Hmm.
it's not that. Like, there's a literal, you know, difference. And it also reminds me again of the work that I want to do, because I think what I am increasingly certain and just driven by is kind of compiling all this information that we are learning about neurodivergence as it relates to just the, like, even we were talking about dysgraphia, right? Like, this idea of there not being as much information out there, but as we continue to build that up, there's another piece about the actual biology, right? That's something that you might learn through an MRI or through some other study. And then also this piece of, okay, when we compile all those things together and we realize, if someone, you know um I was watching a video the other day. He was talking about aphantasia, and for those listeners who may not be familiar, aphantasia is basically, um it speaks to folks who cannot picture things in their mind, and there are varying degrees of it, and that's a whole separate conversation. I'm sorry, but the point is that if you have aphantasia and you are in a relationship with someone, whether it be a friendship, your family member, or romantic, whatever it is, and you're being asked to picture your future together, or you're being asked to picture something that they're sharing with you about, you know an event that you all share together. If you don't this is just like a simple
Mm-hmm.
off the cuff example, but if you don't have that ability, and first of all,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't even realize that there's a lot of people who don't realize that other
Right.
people can picture that. So if you don't even
Right.
realize that you're having these tensions around, well, you can't, I'm talking about our wedding, or I'm talking about, when we were in high school together, that you can't remember that, right? And it's like, I mean, I remember the moment, but I can't. And
Yeah.
so there are these unspoken tensions that are going on that if we were able to help people to see that this is related to their neurodivergence, all of a sudden the entire interaction changes, because it's like,
Yep.
oh, well, let me show you a picture, right? Like, let me show you a picture of
Mm-hmm.
the event, right? That when we went to, whatever, like, guys or girls trip in college, I don't know, whatever it is, right? But like, that's a different kind of scenario, and that's something I'm really, really curious about, because I think particularly for uh melanated and marginalized communities, because we tend to be late diagnosed or underdiagnosed or
Mm-hmm.
misdiagnosed,
Or misdiagnosed, yes.
right? There's a lot of stuff that we're sitting with that is causing us internal tension and tension
Mm-hmm.
with others that we just don't we haven't been able to name yet.
Yep.
And therefore we don't have a full ability to address it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know if you had some more that I mean, I kind of
No, I
got on my
love
soapbox a little bit. Yeah, go ahead.
no, but I love your example. And I
Yeah.
think again, as a teacher, I will say that is also like some of my frustration is that I feel like I gave an example. So my dyslexic child, um, you put a bunch of words in front of them and freeze, like immediate,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm,
But I actually feel like neurotypicals do that when you put these acronyms in front of them too, and they act like, oh, I don't know how to teach, right? Like, and I think that in both cases, um, both of them allowed a fear to not let them see the simplification of what can be done. Does that make sense? So
mm-hmm,
in my
mm-hmm,
neurodivergent students, them feeling comfortable when they're with me to
mm-hmm,
say, okay, I'm with Miss Strawberry, so I can actually take the time to decode this word. And then I can take the time to ask, right? Like
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
in the general ed, you might not be able to do that or might not feel comfortable doing it, right?
Yep, yep.
And in the same way with a teacher, right?
Mm-hmm,
With prefixes, like be creative.
mm-hmm,
We're doing
mm-hmm,
so much lecturing to kids.
mm-hmm,
Like
mm-hmm,
we're doing
mm-hmm,
so much
mm-hmm,
lecturing. And I
mm-hmm.
don't even think it works on all the adults, but that's another conversation.
Yeah,
But
no, that's
like
a whole nother
we
conversation, right?
we but we're doing so much lecturing that we are losing our creative ability and
Mm-hmm,
not even realizing that so many neurodivergents are so creative, right?
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm,
I actually was in a meeting yesterday where we're getting ready for PSSAs. And for those of you who don't know, that's like our state standardized test here in Pennsylvania, right? And so we were going over the data of how the kids did last time.
mm-hmm,
Well, science is only given in two grades. I think now is fifth grade and eighth
mm,
grade. It used to be fourth grade and eighth grade, right?
mm-hmm,
But what ended up happening was is that the person who was running the meeting was saying how confusing it was to them
hmm,
that the kids excelled in technology and engineering and science when we don't even teach that in the school. And I
mm,
went, no, that's not like
mm-hmm,
right.
mm-hmm,
But I will say though, ironically enough, it took two of the neurodivergent teachers
mm-hmm,
to point out, no, like that's multisensory, that's hands-on, that's
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
literally all these kids do. Like
mm-hmm.
you didn't know games was
Yeah.
technology and
Mm-hmm,
engineering, like,
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
depending
mm-hmm.
on but it wasn't clicking, right? And I
Right.
say that to say that I think that we are just we are not using our creative minds and making things way more complex than I think it really has to be. And
Yeah.
um, I would love to do a study if I ever get into a doctoral program. This is part of what I want to do. But like, I would
Mm-hmm,
actually love to do a study to see if there was an uptick in our identifications once we took out home ec and
Mm.
shop. And yeah, because I feel um like my daughter for a while until they closed the school went to a school where they used the kids gifts to
Mm-hmm.
teach. So like my
Mm.
daughter is in the fashion design, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you just give her a regular math problem, what are we doing?
Right,
But
right, right.
if but she can make her own patterns. That's geometry.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
She can take one pattern that's a size 4 and make it a size 16. Like all that's algebra. Like, but we don't know how. Like, we're just
Yeah.
we're making it
Yeah.
too hard. Like, and I just think that again, I think too many of us have lost our ability for our creative brains, which you and I know is where
Mm-hmm.
most neurodivergents land. They land in that side of their brain. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that that is why we're missing them so much, is because we're not tapping into the part of the brain that is literally lit up like fire. So,
Yeah. No, I
mhm.
mean, I love all of these like examples, and I think the kind of thread through all of this, right, is this realization that there are these boxes that we put on things
Yes,
that we don't even realize,
realize.
right? Like a lot of
Absolutely.
people don't even realize. Um, and neurodivergent brains tend to be either through wiring or because of having to, like have experiences
Yep.
where it's like, oh, I can't, like that box doesn't fit me. I've got to figure out how to
Yep.
think outside of this, right?
Yeah.
Um, tend to be those who are better at living outside of those
Mm-hmm.
boxes and seeing outside of them. But yeah, this, and it brings us back to this point of like, could we be teaching the same the
Mm-hmm.
fundamental things that we're looking to have our students learn? Could we teach it in different ways? I know for me, I always tell people my favorite school that I ever attended was when I was in like second and third grade. And what I loved about it was that it was hands-on, it was project based. So it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't just, hey, go and read,
Mm-hmm.
this book, come back and then like regurgitate. Like
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't work well for me. I mean,
Right.
I especially, even thinking about engineering, and I'll just, I'll kind of put a bookend onto this, but I'll know
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I tell people about engineering, I have, my undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering, and, you know, to some people, I no longer do engineering, and technically that is true, right? I am no longer, working on site, building buildings. I'm not doing, complex calculus and all that fun
Mm-hmm.
stuff, right? However, what any engineer will tell you is that what engineering really is about problem solving,
Yep.
and it's about how you look at the problem,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's what makes you a fantastic engineer, not can you,
Yeah.
remember a formula.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, like you said, a lot of people miss this thing. They're looking for, do you know, Bernoulli's principle or something like that? And
Right.
that's, but then if that person could actually, like you said, if you could, um, the ability to see patterns and see, how you can,
Mm-hmm.
take this piece of fabric and turn it into
Yep.
multiple different things,
Yes.
that's not trivial,
It's
right?
not.
That's and so that's the kind of stuff that you say, well, how do we pour into that,
Yep.
and how do we,
Yep.
incorporate some of these other lessons
Yep.
into it to but that's, so I'm glad that you brought those examples up, because this is the real part of this work. It's when
Mm.
you're sitting in these meetings and people are like, kind of stuck in this one lane, and it's like, wait, hold on,
Yeah.
we can do something different here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, I guess, one of the things, and we've kind of started to allude to this, but, let me explicitly say that there are a lot of pressures, political and otherwise, to diminish or completely eliminate a lot of these programs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so why do you think your work just personally, but also through ADE is so important during these times?
So through ADE, I think it's
Mhm,
important because my whole goal is to educate our
mhm,
community on and and some of the stuff to your point has already been eliminated, but
mhm,
I would hope that our work at ADE kind of stops the bleeding and
mhm,
also allows people to be self-reflective. I
mhm,
feel like just because it stopped doesn't mean that we can't look back and say, "Oh, I can see how that would have worked. How can
mhm,
we incorporate bringing it back?" Right?
mhm,
And I
mhm,
do think that some whether they know that they're doing it through a neurodivergent lens or not, or at the
mhm,
benefit of neurodivergent people or not, I do think that some schools are looking and seeing, oh, that was helpful. Oh,
mhm,
we needed that because, oh,
mhm,
right. And
mhm,
able to at least put some of the puzzle pieces back together.
mhm,
As a teacher and as a mom, one of the things that I hope that I'm doing, even in my own family, is just bringing awareness
mhm,
and bringing education and showing other parents um, how to see your people, right?
mhm,
Like,
mhm,
and
mhm,
I
mhm,
think that
mhm,
it's
mhm,
important that I say see them more than
mhm,
I say hear them, or more than I say speak to them. That's the
mhm,
word, right? Because I
mhm,
feel like we don't really hear them, we don't really see them because they're
mhm,
not speaking like how we would speak, or they're not
mhm,
acting how we would act, right?
mhm,
And
mhm.
if I can give an example,
Go ahead.
and I say this a lot, like especially with depression, right? Like
Mhm,
we always think of depression as being sad,
mhm,
always.
mhm, mhm,
And a lot of our young minority kids, it especially male, it does not look like sadness. It looks
mhm,
like anger.
mhm, 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 mhm. Oh
And
yeah,
so
we could have.
so
Mhm,
like we'll label it something else, or
mhm.
we'll tell them that they're too angry, or and we don't even hear the heart of like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
they can't cry. It's what they
yeah.
really want to do. Do you understand what
Mhm,
I'm saying? And
yeah,
so I just feel like if we can get to the nitty-gritty of what that is,
yeah.
especially as a parent, like the way I say it is like, what is your end goal? What
Mhm,
is your end goal? Like, is your end goal to punish so that they're fearful of the punishment, or is your end goal for them to truly understand why there is a consequence and
yep,
why, we are suggesting that they don't take this road or they don't take that road? And if
yep.
the last one is your end goal, which it usually is,
Right.
if your last one is your end goal, then you may not be able to get to that end goal the way we typically
Yeah,
get there.
yeah, yeah,
And that
yeah.
should be okay, right? That
Mhm,
should be
mhm,
okay. But one of the reasons why we do what we do through ADE is because I firmly believe, and I figured this out as a parent and as a teacher, real quick as a teacher, right? But like, because I feel like once we get to the root,
mhm.
both of us are much less frustrated.
Ah, yes,
Do you
yes.
understand what I'm saying? Like, once I
Mhm.
understand that you're acting out because you don't know the math,
Yeah, yeah,
oh, is
yeah.
that what it is?
Mhm,
And now we one on one, and you feel like you can say it to me one on one. And you trust that now that you said it to me, because now I'm going to sit down and work with you one on one. You're not going to go back to that class the same way you came to my class,
mhm,
right? So,
mhm,
so
mhm,
I think that is really what my goal is to really see people for who they are, which is what we all want.
mhm,
Again,
mhm.
sometimes our pride gets in the way. Well, I didn't mean it that way, right? Like
Right,
I
right,
didn't
right,
want to
right.
do it
Yeah,
that
yeah,
way. But
yeah, yeah,
okay, well, listen,
yeah.
I'm a circle. You might have to come get in a circle with me. I can't fit in the box,
Right,
right?
right, right.
So like, or just at least kind of see what it's like so that you can help me fit where I fit and
Yeah,
go from there. Hmm.
yeah. No, again, I hope y'all listening because this is exactly why I wanted to have this conversation. And I wanted to circle back to this point about young men and particularly young Black men, right? And how yeah, like depression and deep sadness is often, forced out as anger. And that's a whole discussion to be had. I mean, about, how the systems, um, frankly, how patriarchy and white supremacy force young black and otherwise melanated men to behave and feel like the only way that they
Yes.
can express themselves is in that way. Because yeah, the deep down, I, I mean, again, for those that know, you know, um, I know I'm from Philly. I was born in Philly, raised in DC, but like North Philly is home. And I can tell you right now, even growing up, because of my ability to perceive things differently, I saw the
Mhm.
deepest sadness in
Yes.
some of those dudes that was
Yeah.
moving through the hood, like,
Hmm.
you know, that you were like, oh, I ain't messing with, but like there was a deep, deep,
Yeah.
deep, deep sadness there.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like, but understanding that and seeing again the humanity in the person
Yes.
across from you, all of a sudden you like, you know what? Like, let me see if I can create a space where, like you said, both of us can feel, because we not really trying to box, we're not really trying to
No, we're
argue,
not.
right? So like, so yeah, like, I mean, again, everything that you talked about, I really appreciate you sharing, because the last thing I would say is that this can also be difficult, as we're in this space, as we're talking about, parents, it can be difficult,
Absolutely.
multiple different levels. And so, yeah, bringing it back to, like, as you said, what's your end goal, and always keeping that in focus, because if
Yep.
you lead with that, a lot of great things can happen, and you
Absolutely.
can let go of some stuff that you're like, all right, you know what, maybe that's how my mom or my dad or my grandparents did, whatever, I don't know, right? Like, that's how, but this is a different era, this is a different child, this is a different person.
And we
How do
know
I
more. We
Yeah,
should
we
know
know,
more,
and we
right?
and we right, and right, that's
At the
exactly
end of the
right.
day, your grandma may not have known nothing about dyslexia or
Right, 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 right,
ADHD.
right.
She just thought your child was jumping off of stuff, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, right,
or just impulsive, right?
right.
And so they didn't know. So now
Yeah.
that we know,
Mm-hmm.
like, let's educate ourselves. Let's not run from it. Let us
Mm-hmm.
educate ourselves on it so that we can all be better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
Um, so I know, we got a couple more questions,
Okay.
but I know you've got a summit coming up in Philly in April. So tell us a little bit about it. Tell us what you're looking to accomplish with it.
Yeah, I'm so excited about our
Mm-hmm.
event in April, which you
Mm-hmm.
know, because
Yeah, yeah.
and so what it's called is the Neurodivergent Immersion Experience.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things, of course, the first thing people always ask me, which they probably don't ask on your podcast since you bring so much education to it, but they're like, what does neurodivergence means, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I, against my gut and everything in me, I just end up saying special education, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that is, again, I'm learning how to talk everybody else's language and I need you to understand what I'm saying. So,
Mm-hmm.
yes, it is centered around special education. However, again, one of the things that we don't think of when we think long term is neurodivergent kids become neurodivergent adults. So, you are
Mm-hmm.
surrounded by
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
neurodivergent
Mm-hmm.
adults because we don't have IEPs as adults, right?
Right, right,
Like,
right, right.
and so so it's called the neurodivergent immersion experience specifically so that neurodivergent youth and adults can feel comfortable coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And the theme for this year is walk a day in my shoes.
Mm,
And we will have a track for the community, which would be our community leaders, our employers,
mhm,
um, our nonprofit organizations, like things of that nature, even clergy people, right? Because
mhm.
the church
Yeah.
needs some education around this stuff, right? So listen. I
Go
say
ahead,
that
talk.
as a
Yeah, yeah.
God
Speak,
loving
speak the
Christian.
truth.
Listen, the
Tell
church
the truth,
really
shame
does
the
need
devil, as
some
they say. Go ahead.
education, right? So that's our community track. But then we
Hmm.
also have our educator track, and we do have a special track for our teachers. Where,
Hmm.
again, one of the things I found out as a teacher, I told you I started out as a mom and all this. And when I tell you I was so annoyed with these teachers, Like you supposed to be teaching my child. You supposed to know. Like you telling
Right.
me you supposed to be an expert. Like that's how. And then I'm gonna tell you, like, and then when I became educated, like some of the
Mm-hmm.
same teachers was like, "Well, I got this," and okay, like just like with the kids, I'm not here to box. I just want
Right.
my
Right.
kids to be taught right.
Mm-hmm.
And and so, but one of the things when I first started working is I would go and I would introduce myself as the academic interventionist and a dyslexia specialist. And the teacher was like, "What's dyslexia?" And I'm talking sped teacher, I'm talking
You,
special education teachers.
wow.
And I was like, "Oh, you really don't like, you really don't know. Like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah. That's
no."
amazing.
And
Mm.
so, but it softened my heart though, Sheldon, because then I was like, okay, so y'all weren't like this with my child just because y'all was being malicious. Like y'all
Mm-hmm.
really straight didn't know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So for
Mm-hmm.
me, ADE couldn't just be about the kids. It had
Mm-hmm.
to be about the educators as well.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm not trying to box y'all. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
trying to, and not just that, but like real talk, business wise, I
Mm-hmm.
don't understand why people would keep enduring lawsuits when the training would be available. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but that's just me. I wouldn't want
Yeah.
to
I'm
pay the
about
money. I'm just
to.
saying. Like,
Hey,
so, but
makes
so,
sense
like,
to me.
yeah, so like for me, it's like, why not send your teachers out so they can get the education
Mm-hmm.
and the resources, because we will have people there who will offer this training on a regular basis, and your teachers could come out and get the training on a regular basis, and then
Mm-hmm.
you could save yourself some money. I'm just saying,
Right.
if you
Yeah.
got teachers trained in what it is that
Yeah.
that these disabilities are, and that's not just for dyslexia, that's
Yeah.
across the board, right?
Yeah.
And which is, again, is why it's called the neurodivergent emergent
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
experience, right? Because it's
Mm-hmm.
for all of them. But one
Yeah.
of the things I'm really excited about, Sheldon, is that we'll actually have simulations. So we will
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
have
Mm-hmm.
simulations of what it feels like to be autistic, what it feels like to be dyslexic,
Yeah.
what it feels like to be dysgraphic, what it
Mm-hmm.
feels like to have ADHD in the classroom. And our
Mm-hmm.
hope is that, just like with everything we do with ADE, is to create a level of empathy where
Mm-hmm.
if people walk into these simulations and they walk out and they're like, what did I just go through? And then take that and multiply it 24/7, three sixty
Mm-hmm.
five,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
that's the person that you're dealing with,
Yes.
right? And I
Yes.
would hope that it would give all of us, community educators, we have a track for families, and we
Mm-hmm.
have a track for the youth. And I would
Mm-hmm.
just hope that it would give all of us a better understanding, um, of who it is that is in our presence.
Yeah. Yeah.
That, you know what I mean? Like, that's really what I want. I want people walking away from it like, yeah, I walked in your shoes and them shoes
Yeah.
hurt, or them
Yeah.
shoes were
Yeah.
tight, or them shoes were
Right.
too big. Like one of
Right.
them, right? And
Right.
but being able to say, okay, but now I see, why it's difficult for you to understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
And I'm just really excited about that. So it starts Friday, which is April the 10th. We actually have stories served. So us black folk like to eat and talk around the dinner table.
Right.
And that's really what that's going to be. And we have
Yeah.
an amazing person coming out named Brent Johnstone. He just wrote a book called Dyslexic and Proud.
Mm.
And we're going to take his story and also expand it across cultures so
Mm.
people can see from the Latino community what it's like. And
Mm.
we had somebody coming from the diaspora and talking about what it's like in Africa and what
Mm.
they experience and how they view neurodivergence, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
again, I just want us all to come together as a collective and understand, what people are dealing with. Is just because we don't talk about it. You know how a couple years ago people were like, don't get tested and it won't be there.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's not really the case, right? So
Yeah.
it's amongst us. And so I just want us to know how to embrace it. And our families, one of the first sessions we have is about grief. And I know that sounds
Mm.
weird.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not gonna lie to y'all. When my child was identified, I did nothing but cry for the first couple, because I
Mm-hmm.
didn't. I cried as a black mom, knowing just the other that my child would
Mm-hmm.
have to
Mm-hmm.
deal with. If
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
understand what I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
and so. but I also cried because I didn't know what it meant. Like I didn't understand. I didn't understand my child. I didn't understand what that meant. And
Mm-hmm.
it was going to be more work for us because we
Mm-hmm.
had to become more educated about it. But
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't love my child and not understand what they were going through. And
Mm-hmm.
I was blessed
Mm-hmm.
enough to be able to be in a space to get that education. And I also understand that other parents may not necessarily have that opportunity. So we want to bring the education to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. There's so many different things. I mean, you've answered some other questions that I didn't even like explicitly ask. Like even the part about the importance of shared language, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
people, I mean, I can't imagine, like you said, a sped teacher then saying that they're not familiar with like dyslexia. Like that would just blow my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not as if it's one of the more obscure ones. Like if you had said, "Oh, it's synesthesia" or something like that, we'd be like, "Oh, that's like not everybody kind of like okay," but like dyslexia is. I mean, like
You
that.
would think
Yeah,
because
right. Like,
dyslexia is the number one learning disability. You would think, but actually people know more about autism than they do about dyslexia.
and
Um, I
that's a
know. It's
yeah, that's a whole
it's
and that's a
fascinating
whole
to me.
discussion. Yeah, but
Mm-hmm.
but the importance of the shared language too, right, is in there because now you can, again, when you're thinking about, well, what's the tension here? Is it because you're like trying to pick on my child? There's at least a portion of that that's just, I don't even know what I'm dealing with, which
Exactly.
is
No, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know how to talk about it. And that's why I think like there's so many great things about, the event that you're planning for April, but I think what is like the special sauce are these opportunities for folks to experience just a piece of it, because it even goes back to what we were saying earlier. you know it's not in the one off, you know um like food texture interaction where you're like, oh, like eat that food, boy, or whatever. Like, sorry, that was a bit of a flashback for me, but but
But
you know,
listen,
like,
even that I didn't know. I ain't know they had nothing to do with autism, and I'm one of them parents like you want to eat that. Right? Had
but
no
listen,
clue. Yeah.
as I'm saying to you, like there are many different neurotypes that
Yes.
have issues with food textures and different things of that
It's
nature. But
sensory.
like,
Yeah.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
that sensory, right? That
Mm-hmm.
sensory challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you said I can make peace with that part, but thinking about, well, what would it be like? Okay, I'm trying to just get you to eat dinner. Let's just talk about that. Okay, fine. But
Yes.
then putting yourself in the shoes of somebody who's like, every time I go out,
Mm-hmm.
I have to be concerned that what comes to me on my plate or in the
Yep.
bag of food or
Yep.
whatever it is going to be something that is not just going to, like, forget about, most people think, oh, I'm just looking for the best dining experience. I want it to taste. And it's like that. Look, let's put that to the side. Like, it might have a taste that I like, but if that texture
Is all.
is wrong,
Mm-hmm.
can't deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
And imagine that having to be, the kind of experience that you have with everywhere that you
Everywhere.
go.
Yep.
And that that when you try to bring it up, more than likely somebody's going to tease you or somebody's going
Yep.
to dismiss your
Yes.
needs,
And
right?
dismissing
And
is the big one,
the
right?
right, the dismissing
Dismissing is the
is
big one.
absolutely
Like, why
right.
you just want to be sad all the time? Really? Like, is that really
Right.
what you think?
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. That's exactly, like, yeah, you know what? Like, this is
Wake up and be
this
sad.
exactly.
I just want to
That's
find
my
ways
goal for the
to,
day,
right?
right?
Like, yeah.
Um, but that's why, like I said, these opportunities to have these kinds of experiences that hopefully, start to bridge this gap. And hopefully what I also hope happens is that somebody who doesn't realize that this thing needs to be named for them.
Yes.
I'm like getting
I'm
emotional
so
as
excited about that. Yes.
but yeah, because that's such
Yeah.
powerful work.
It
That's
is.
such powerful work.
It
So
is.
yeah, I'm hoping that everybody who's able comes out, what's the word to say, to be transparent,
Hmm.
I will have the opportunity to speak there.
Yes,
So
I'm
so
so
so I'm
excited.
excited to be there as well. um you know so as we start to kind of round out, like,
Hmm.
I mean, you've talked a little bit about are there any other like surprising discoveries, or maybe a stat that stood out to you in your work that, was kind of
Hmm.
shocking?
hmm So we talk about dyslexia, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
they make up about, which again, people don't realize, 20% of population. So one in
Mm-hmm.
five kids, right? But
Mm-hmm.
again, when we talk about neurodivergence, that number is pretty much the same for each neurodivergence. So like
Mm.
dyscalculia makes up about 20%.
Mm.
Bipolar disorder makes about, so now when you start adding all these together and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
realizing
Mm-hmm.
that one
Mm-hmm.
person may not have all of them, but
Right.
different, that's like a good amount of your class, or that's like a good
Yeah.
amount of your job, or that, right?
Right.
Like, and so I
Right.
think that part, once I started putting the numbers together, I'm like, so more people are probably neurodivergent than they are neurotypical. But
Mm.
again, I think that that's a conversation that we don't
Yeah.
necessarily like to have. The
Mm-hmm.
other number that really stuck out to me, Sheldon, especially with kids, especially with Black kids,
Mm-hmm.
um is that the our I think minorities make up about 56% of the SPED population in the city of Philadelphia alone. I believe that was
Mm.
the numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, of that 56%, I think 75% are emotionally disturbed, which to me is code word for mental
Mm.
health, which is
Mm-hmm.
still
Mm-hmm.
a neurodivergence, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
people
Mm-hmm.
don't think, but that is
Mm-hmm.
still a
Mm-hmm.
neurodivergence, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
other number is, okay, so you say 20% is dyslexic. Guess how much, guess how high the percentage is in juvenile detention centers?
Oh, I mean, I'm sure that's off the charts right there.
Yeah,
I'm thinking, you probably gonna say something like 80% or something like that.
almost 77, 75, 77%. They
Wow.
are either functionally illiterate or actually had an IEP,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I was talking to somebody, I think this past weekend, where you have a lot of autistic kids in juvenile, right? They
Mm-hmm.
don't have any supports, and they don't have, like, to my knowledge, this is what the person was telling me. So don't come on here and
Right.
talk about this. I'm the messenger. That's what they were
Yeah, no,
saying,
no,
right?
no. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they were asking me, though, if I was going to provide specific training for law enforcement, because they felt like the
Mm.
juvenile center was not set up for sensory overload. So like if
Mm-hmm.
two kids over here are getting in a fight and then the alarm goes off, and now you got the autistic kids over here like going ballistic because the alarms are
Mm-hmm.
all over,
Mm-hmm.
and now they're
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
now they're getting punished
Right.
because
Right.
and it is literally sensory overload. You didn't,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
so those are the things that are close to my heart. But when I saw that 70% number, I felt like y'all can't talk to me about how many little, like how little kids are dealing with special education, because that really is literally a school to prison pipeline. Like if
Yeah.
we're literally not catching the little 20%, which I don't think is 20, but if you're
Yeah.
not catching the little
Yeah.
20%,
Mm-hmm.
your whole jail pretty
Yeah.
much is filled with neurodivergent kids. Like that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a
Listen,
problem.
there's so much. I mean, like, one, absolutely. The school to prison pipeline, I'm sorry, and this realization, going back to what you shared earlier, right? About, again, this anger that's coming up, like you're getting curious about that, because it's like, oh wait,
Yes.
like you're actually angry because
Yep.
you know the sensory things that's going on, your ability to, like, you're being asked to read this thing in front of the class, and or whatever, like, I was listening or reading something the other day, and they were talking about how teachers were getting mad because the students, I don't know if it was our conversation, but somebody, we were having this conversation talking about students asking for audiobooks and teachers being mad,
Yes.
like, and
Yes.
it's like,
Yep.
what
Yep.
what do you mean? Like, why are you
Mhm.
mad at like, give them the audiobook. Like, if the give them the audiobook.
Especially
Right.
again, if you're not teaching phonics, if you're
Right.
at a
Right. Right.
grade level where you're not even teaching them how to read,
Right.
give them the book.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I
Right.
don't
Like.
understand what we're doing, right? Like,
Yeah.
and again, that goes back to what we said before, right? What is the goal? Is the
Mm-hmm.
goal that
Mm-hmm.
you want them to master telling you what is happening in the story, or is the goal
Mm-hmm.
that you want to see if they can read phonetically and decode?
Right.
Because those are two
Right.
different
Two.
things.
Two. Right. Yeah.
They're two
Yeah.
different skill sets, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
you have, so I'll get, and I don't know if I told you this, I think I might
Mm-hmm.
have, but like, so my neurodivergent child, when we got them into a specialized school
Mm-hmm.
for the short time they were there,
Mm-hmm.
which is a whole different story. But when we
Oh.
got them in a specialized school and they started seeing people like themselves,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
This child who struggles to read, which
Mm-hmm.
by the way, dyslexia is not just about reading, but
Mm-hmm.
you'll
Mm-hmm.
learn
Mm-hmm.
that at the
Mm-hmm.
conference.
Right.
Dyslexia is
Right.
not
Right.
just
Right.
about
Show up
reading.
at the right.
But they struggle to read. But when I tell you they were writing a whole book with their friends. And guess what they were using? Google Docs, speak
Mm-hmm.
to text, and each
Mm-hmm.
of them were also using their strengths. So like even if they didn't want to use speech to text, because sometimes neurodivergent kids especially are resistant to the accommodations, right?
Mm.
um but like they would kind of team up and like tag team off of each other. But also that neurodivergent child of mine didn't have no problem with me reading the story to correct it, because it was
Mm-hmm.
like, now this is my, like, I'm doing so, you understand what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so again, I just feel like these are the things where you giving them pencil and paper to a child that has dysgraphia,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then
Mm-hmm.
getting on
Mm-hmm.
them about taking 30 minutes to write, and
Mm-hmm.
then
Mm-hmm.
getting on them because you can't understand what they're, that is
Yeah.
insanity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
No, I mean, and that's right. So yeah, I mean, again, it goes back to the fun, but like, what is it that we really are looking
What
like?
is it we're
What's
looking for?
actually necessary here? What's the stuff that's just we could have a whole sidebar conversation about how schools are set up to you know uh, just basically recreate the systems that are already in place, the systems of oppression that are already in place.
Mhm.
Let me explicitly say that, right? And so there's a whole conversation about that, but
But
like,
to that point, not to cut you off,
no,
Sheldon,
go
I
ahead.
think that this is where, though, we had that unique opportunity, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
what happened before when we couldn't read as a people, right? Black
Mm-hmm.
got
Mm-hmm.
together,
Mm-hmm.
created their own schools, created, and
Mm-hmm.
like literally the literacy rate like multiplied, more
Mm-hmm.
than double, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
not like we don't have the capability, even in our own community, to do it. Again, I think that this is where assimilation kind of, you
Oh yeah,
know, yes.
that's a whole
And I
conversation. Whole
think that,
conversation.
right, and I think that we need to tap back into our roots. Like we
Yeah.
know how to, we really do. If we reach deep down inside, we know how to reach these kids. And again, if
Mm-hmm.
we don't, there are organizations like mine out there to just reinforce what needs to happen. But yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, the last, I just want to say one more thing about
Yeah,
what you were talking about
absolutely.
earlier, which was about this school to prison pipeline. Another stat, because for those that are listening and may not have heard earlier episodes where I've mentioned this, but this is a great callback. You know, typically, let's just say dyslexia is a neurotype that's centered around those who can't do something, right? And we
Mm-hmm.
talked about the stats of what that means so far as ending up in juvenile detention and other things. Um, a stat that I really want to go back and dig into, but that I was reading, I don't know, a year or two ago now, but there was this estimate that quote unquote gifted children, those that who are assumed to be able to do above and beyond, make up 20 to 30% of the prison
Yeah,
population.
and you know what? That does not surprise me. That doesn't surprise me though, Sheldon.
Listen.
You know what? And listen, you know
Go
what
ahead.
my
Go ahead.
dad
Go
used
ahead.
to say, which I
Mm-hmm.
and I would laugh, but it's so true. My
Mm-hmm.
He said, drug drug dealers ain't nothing but entrepreneurs that took the wrong path.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Graffiti
mean,
artists are nothing but artists that weren't given the proper platform. right? Like these are things, again, so many of our kids are gifted. And a big part of that is dual. It's not just systematic for racism, but I really think that it's systematic in what we latched onto as a people that we shouldn't have. Does that make sense? So I feel like we really did buy into, well, they're not doing it that way, so they're bad kids, right? And so we really, and that goes back to understanding them and seeing them, right? And I just think that yeah, it breaks my heart, but again, it is not surprising to me at all. Like,
Yeah.
I had a conversation. I was talking to my kid because one of the things I do in class is we have a distinction between neurodiversity. Like, having a difference is not you being dumb, right? So I gave my kid, and this is how we really do train our kids. So this is very interesting. I told my kids, I said, would you all agree that Albert Einstein was a genius? They said yes. You would agree, right, Sheldon, that he was a
Yes, yeah,
gifted
yeah, yeah,
child. Would
yeah,
you agree
yeah.
with that? He was a
Yes, I
gifted
would.
child. So I said to them, I said, so what if I told y'all that Albert Einstein could not read
Mhm.
and he kept getting
Mhm.
expelled out of schools? What if I told y'all that? Do you know what
Mhm.
several of these kids told me? I guess we were taught wrong then. I guess he wasn't a genius.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And
Mm.
like, that's
Yeah,
really what we're saying, right?
yeah.
When that's not true, right?
Right.
Like,
No, no. I mean, right.
and so again, but that's us literally, we're passing down seeing things one way to our kids. And, I just think it's so interesting, like it's just so, in that conversation between gifted and sped, as if
Mm-hmm.
gifted isn't sped.
Listen, that's, I mean, and this is, again, we could have a million different
Hmm.
conversations, but I mean, I think, yeah, I'll explicitly say, right, that, again, one of the themes within this podcast and just my work is to help people to see that, you know, particularly as it relates to giftedness, that there is a need for special
There
education
is.
and that there is a need to not assume that they can figure it out and they can
Hmm.
we don't need
Absolutely.
to offer them any services. Ultimately, the ideal world is a classroom where all kids, all students can exist and learn in their particular way and
Yes.
and feel supported,
Yes.
right? um but in getting there, a part of that is realizing, you know let's not, you know forget about really any of these different
Any of them.
neurotypes, right?
Yeah.
Let's not forget about any of them, right? But that's a
And, and
again,
and
I
and
think.
to that, I think the key to all of it, again,
Mhm,
let's go back to the
mhm,
goal, right? The
right, right.
goal is that every person gets to meet their potential, and that
Mhm,
we as the community and we as educators do what our part is to
mhm,
ensure that they're reaching their potential, right?
mhm, mhm,
And to your point, what happens with gifted is, I don't think we educate in a way where gifted people like yourself can reach their potential. We
mhm,
don't.
mhm,
We
mhm,
don't.
mhm.
And let's be honest, that's because some of y'all even above our heads. So we don't even know how. I'm just saying, right? Like,
Right, right.
and so again, but then we all have to be humble enough to then put
Mhm,
y'all in spaces and in places and create spaces and places
mhm,
for
mhm,
our gifted individuals to thrive. And
mhm,
that's all we try to do, even with,
mhm,
our dyslexic, because again, there's called twice gifted, where you could have
mhm, mhm,
dyslexia
mhm,
and be right and be
mhm.
off the charts and something else.
Right.
So
Yeah.
again, I just think that we don't have these conversations enough,
Yeah.
and we just don't latch on enough to really get the understanding, so that everybody can feel welcome, everybody can feel a part of the village, everybody knows the amazing part they play, the
Mhm,
link that they are in the chain, right,
mhm.
to make our village sustainable.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. So as we like officially round out the last couple of questions that I actually ask everybody that I want to make sure that I ask you, um, you know, what would you say are like 1 to 2 keys to neurodivergent healing and thriving that you would like to share with folks?
1 or 2 keys to neurodivergent thriving. For me, it would be, well, we kind of use it with the acronym A.D.E. It would be accepting, it
Mm,
would be destigmatizing,
mhm,
and then
mhm,
the
mhm.
E would act as a double E, education and empowerment. That's
Yeah.
what we do, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you have to accept it what it is. You got to
Yeah.
call it what it is.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and again, accepting it with destigmatizing it, because once you look
Yeah.
at it as not a deficiency, then
Mhm.
it's easy to empower somebody, you
Yeah.
know.
And to even one be compelled to educate and to receive the education, right?
Yes,
Like I think, yeah, a lot of this work, right? If we when we because that acceptance part is a tough part,
it
right? But
is.
then
Mm-hmm.
and a part of that is, removing the shame and all this other stuff that can be associated with um the people being named certain things, right? And so yeah, that's I love that.
Mm-hmm.
What are maybe like 1 or 2 things you wish the world knew or built more capacity for?
I wish we would build more capacity for diversity
Mm,
and things
yeah.
that, and being self-reflective about why that
Hmm.
makes us uncomfortable. Um,
Yeah.
I like,
Yeah.
and I know
Yeah.
you laughed when I said it before, but it's true. I feel like we are only uncomfortable with diversity that doesn't seem like it directly benefits us, right? So,
Mm,
you know,
that's a word. Yeah.
you don't want the same type of food on your plate. I
Yeah.
If I get, now, some people will eat a whole plate of greens. I personally need a 3-course meal, right? Like, I'm just saying, right? But
Yeah.
you don't want a world full of all the same animals. You don't even
Right.
want a world full of all the same color, like paint
Right.
color. So I don't know why you want the world full of all the same people color. But that's, again, these are,
That's a whole nother.
that's a whole
Yeah.
nother conversation. But again, I just think that if we are comfortable with diversity and we really embrace what it brings,
Hmm.
I think that really, like, it would be a much better place. And that's what
Yeah.
I want us to do. I want us to be more understanding of diversity.
Yeah.
And I also just want us to be more loving. I guess that's where I'm at. Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really think that so much of what this boils down to, even with my kids, and I know some people don't understand it, like how I can love 600 strangers, but I do. Like, I love all of my students, and I messed up my computer earlier this week because, and I had this thing with you today, but I
Hmm.
got so mad I slammed my computer down on a pen and and cracked my
Mm,
computer screen. But I was mad because I was like, this kid needs it and I need this kid. And it was like, I felt like I was fighting, but like, literally, like, I love them kids like my own. You
mhm,
know what I'm
mhm,
saying? And when
mhm,
that
mhm.
incident happened, like, I straight went into mom mode. It wasn't even my student
Right.
anymore. And so, like, I was like, oh, I guess I need to work on it. But I will tell you, when that kid came to my room,
Mhm,
they knew, like,
mhm,
Miss Strawberry
mhm.
might be being stern with you, but like, she does this because she absolutely loves you,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah,
she sees
yeah.
you and whatever anybody else doesn't see in you, right? Like, that's not her
Mhm.
problem, right? If
Yeah,
they don't see
yeah,
it in you, that's not her problem. But
yeah,
you're not going to get away with being less than your best self
yeah,
with me.
yeah.
And that really does come from a place of love. Like, I really do love my students. I really do
Mhm,
love my kids. I love my community,
mhm.
right? And yeah, and I want what's best for them, and I want to see everybody thrive. And I think because once they thrive, then the community thrives. We won't even have to be
Yeah.
having so many conversations about being under resourced, because we will find the resources within ourselves.
Uh, That's a word. Yes, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I love that. So last question. I mean, you're doing a lot of great things. You got the summit coming up. They mentioned that you've got a book coming out. Tell us about your projects and how
Oh my
people
gosh. Yeah.
can stay in touch with you.
Sure. So A.D.E we have a support group for neurodivergence as well. We're
Mm,
getting that back off the ground. And so you can go to our website and you could register for the support group.
mhm,
In September, we always have a back to school event
mm,
where we bring in special education teachers. It's called IE Back to School Night, a play off of IEPs, and it's
mhm,
about meeting your IEP village. So
mm,
um, if parents don't know what differentiated instruction looks like, which is what the IEP is about, that's where
mhm,
they would come to learn about that. And again, we also almost always at all of our events have a spot for teachers, and we will have that at our IE Back to School event as well.
mm,
I do have a book coming out. It's called My Hannah Experience: A Promise Made, a
mm,
Promise Kept.
mm.
It is very transparent about my
Okay.
life, and it is very
Mhm,
transparent, very much so about how ADE has come into fruition. Um, it is biblically based
mm,
because that's who Hannah is.
mhm,
All of my books won't be biblically based, but my
mhm,
foundational one really was about a promise I made to God to rededicate my child back to
mm,
God.
mm,
But how I really didn't expect it to look like Hannah's actual experience, which
hmm.
wasn't just this Simba Mufasa type of situation. And I
Right.
actually did release my child to their priest.
Mm, mhm,
Um,
mhm,
which is where they are currently, right? And
mhm,
the
mhm,
beauty of it, I do want to mention this part, is that
mhm.
those particular people will be at the conference. They actually have a session of their own.
Oh.
And so, but they've just been absolutely amazing. But it
Mhm,
is about when it's hard to keep a promise.
yeah.
And
Mm,
ultimately, though, as neurodivergent parents, I understand that it could be, and I don't even know if hard is the right word, different than
mhm,
raising a neurotypical child. Sometimes it could
mhm,
be harder just because of the systems, right? But
mhm, mhm,
at the end of the day, like, we can do what we need to do by our kids. It may take sacrifices that we didn't think we had to make.
mhm, mhm.
But it is possible. So that will be coming out in July around my birthday, July 18th.
Okay.
And so I'm excited about that. So you can visit the website, www.audacity2daretoeducate.org.
Mm,
And there you can get the tickets to register for the event in April as
mhm.
well. And you can kind of see what we have been doing. I'm just excited. We done been to Omaha, to Nairobi, and to
Yeah,
Ghana, and now we're back home. So I'm just really excited about that.
yeah. Well, thank you. I'm excited. I will make sure to put all those links into the show notes for folks.
Hmm.
But Shakela, thank you so much for
Thank
being here, for
you.
sharing your story. Um, yeah, and I'm looking forward to April for the event itself, and then hopefully being able to share some things that bless the folks that come to
Yes.
my session.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
thank you again for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining me on another episode of I Must Be Buggin'. I hope you felt seen, safe, and celebrated by what you heard today. Don't forget to visit my website, sheldongaysbuggin.com, where you can catch all of my episodes, book me to speak, and check out my merch. Don't hesitate to hit me up on socials either. I'm eager to hear your thoughts, your experiences, and your stories. Remember, this podcast is all about sharing humanized narratives about who we are and how we contribute to the beautiful and necessary diversity of humanity. This is our place to unmask and just be. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend, leave a review, and subscribe. It helps our people find community. So until next time, stay up and enjoy who you were meant to be. Ashe.